Good morning, friends. Welcome to Word of God OBE Journal 2019, number 14. And as you can see, the morning sun has made its way through the trees, and I'm now could describe myself in a line from James Joyce's Ulysses if I could only remember it properly. Spangled light and dark. Anyway, interesting visual accompaniment to the audio track. And what can I say? I slept in. Should have been up an hour ago, doing it in the dark like I like to do. But not so. So, onward we go with our OBE journal. Onward we go with our explorations of what lies out there and our hauling in of the memories rather than the suppressing or the ignoring of the memories, shoving them into the subconscious where they will create wisps of lucid dreams and make you wonder, what was I up to last night? What was all that about? We're slowly roping in the bits and bobs of the jigsaw puzzle of our multidimensionality. Learning to cope with the reality and the responsibility of being conscious beings spanning our sentience throughout the universe, and not just here on earth when we awaken and go about our business for the day and then go back to sleep. Sleep is for the body to rest and recuperate and regenerate. Sleep is not for the mind or the soul. There's that old joke about the city never sleeps at night. Well, neither does the mind nor the soul. And certainly we genuinely need our rest. Our bodies and our nervous systems need a rest from the strains and excitements of the day, myself included. But the mind and the soul do not. And that is what we are discovering, the extent of the mind and the soul. Or rediscovering. We have known it all along, but we choose to forget it for the sake of incarnation and the lessons thereof. This 20th century incarnation bleeding into this 21st century incarnation. We have agreed to put aside our multidimensionality, our sentience of eternity, and accept the various belief systems that we inherit when we are born. The belief systems of parents, the belief systems of religion, the education system, the political system, the economic system. Each one of them gives us a set of beliefs and norms to follow, which as what can I say, sensible citizens wishing to contribute constructively to our society, as I think almost all of us wish to do, we follow those patterns. We follow those norms as much as we can, and we express ourselves individually within those norms, within those acceptable behaviors, within those laws. And when we're out of body, exploring, having fun, absorbing the astral vibrations unconsciously, as many of us do when we float up out of our bodies. Many of you just float there, above your body, 2 to 3 feet, and the astral body floats there, absorbs the astral vibrations because it's an astral body in astral vibration, and then it settles back down. That's the most prominent behavior pattern of an astral body. The more adventurous among us, of course, start to explore. But even if you're not exploring and you're just sleeping, that's what your astral body will do. It will float up out of your physical and hover there and absorb the vibrations that it gets at the astral level. I am, amongst other things, I keep in touch with some of you psychically, and obviously sometimes by email too. But I'm aware of what some of you are doing. Not because I'm nosy, but because I care. And I can assure you that whether you remember or not, you are visiting your deceased loved ones. I've accompanied some of you on these trips, just to make sure. And those dead parents, those dead offspring, those lovely children that left rather too soon for your care, for your preference. You've been visiting them. And those visits are joyous reunions. Sometimes after a few years, they're not quite so joyous because you're quite accustomed to it. That's not to say that they're not joyous, but the initial excitement, wanes a little and you get used to it. And you're comfortable with each other. And you share, love and information about each other's lives, what they're doing on the astral, what you're doing on the physical, that sort of a thing. Many of you are exploring the astral on your own without prompting from me. You watch these videos, you listen to these audios, and then you play along, as we say, and then later you're doing it on your own. I know because I've been watching. And as I say, watching in a caring, sensitive way, not in a in a nosy, let me dig my way into your private life way. And I'm very happy for what you're all doing. This is great. You're sprouting your wings unashamedly, excitedly. This is a great thing. And of course, we've been doing this all throughout our cycle of incarnations on the planet, to one degree or another, and slotting those experiences into the belief systems of the incarnations of hundreds of years ago, or forgetting them altogether. But even thousands of years ago, we were having dreams about dead people and waking up in the morning and talking about it. And what we're doing now is a continuation of that on a slightly more sophisticated level. We have the ground rules down pat at this point. We sort of know what's going on. And we've got a grip on where we've come from prior to being sentient, exploring entities rooted on Gaia or Earth. We have a deeper understanding of what the incarnational experiment on this planet actually entails. A very deep dive into materiality and density. A very deep dive, much deeper than we'd done before. We purposely separated ourselves from the levels of inherent divinity that we had experienced as incarnations on other planetary systems. This one's a tough one. And we slugged it out with the elements, with the predatory animals, for whom we were basically dinner, and built that first chakra, that fight or flight. We got very good at running into caves really fast. And that panic level of endlessly imminent mortality built in us a certain, toughness. And over thousands of years, of course. And conveyed that data to our higher selves, to our monads, who were, hovering way up there, watching and absorbing. It gave them data that they hadn't had before. We were and we are explorers for our higher selves, as I think you all know by this point. But just to emphasize that. We're out here doing the legwork for the higher selves, for the monads. Oh yes, we are. And I sure hope they're grateful, because we're the ones that are doing it, not them. So let us try this particular meditation this morning. Let us move out of our bodies smoothly and efficiently, without resistance, without a need for spells or rituals or preparation. Let us just do it. Take yourself above your position on the planet right now. Find yourself above your area, your neighborhood, your rural county, your village, your town, your country. Find yourself above it, looking down. Looking down on the planet from, well, more than hundreds of feet. Go high enough that you can see the landscape out to the horizons in any direction. Now, I realize we're all in different parts of the planet at the moment. That is fine. Doesn't matter if it's day or night, or dusk or dawn. Find yourself up there, looking down on your old neighborhood, your old county, your old city, as you have done many times before. Only this time, you're experiencing it consciously. See how familiar it looks? There's nothing strange about this. You've been here before, you've done this. You've absorbed this information, and now you're reusing it. So at a height of, I don't know, a mile or something, kilometer if you're happier with kilometers, just get up there and look at the land as you float from, well, west to east or east to west. It's all sort of irrelevant when you're above the planet like this and you can see the sphere. Or maybe you're just looking at the horizon. Maybe it's not quite far enough that you can see the whole planet. I'm not really asking you to be out in space so much as above the oceans and the landscape and, you know, the mountains and, you know, that sort of a thing. And let us now go around the planet. I'm here in Canada, and I'll start to go east towards Europe. If you care to follow me, that is fine. But if you find yourself elsewhere, choose your own path. Please feel free. But we are going to go around the sphere. This lovely spherical object with which we have been gifted by the divinities that exist within us at a very deep level. The divinities that helped create this planet in the first place. Now, I know that's a long time ago. So let us move around the planets in that direction, if you will. Feel the various vibrations coming up to you from the surface of the earth. As you go through, rural areas with very low population, crossing villages, small towns, every once in a while hitting a big city. Feel those vibrations. Allow the beauty of the colors reaching up to envelop you. If there is cloud cover, then by all means sink below that cloud cover so that you can't see the planet. I'm not asking you to look at endless banks of clouds. And some of you will definitely be hitting that, depending on where you are. I've already crossed eastern Canada by this point. A little too quickly, I think. I kind of whizzed right by Montreal and kind of followed the St. Lawrence out to the sea. It's a regular signpost for us Canadian out-of-body travelers. And the St. Lawrence Seaway is a big, wide body of water leading out to the sea over hundreds of miles. Easily recognizable from the air. Out over the Atlantic and feeling that freedom, that Yes, that's what I get, that sort of freedom of the elements, the wind particularly. I mean, the wind always does what it wants. But over the sea, it seems even freer than it does over the land. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe I'll ask a Deva about that one day. Now, as you speed around, obviously, you determine your own speed. You can go at any rate you want. I think most of you realize that it is determined by your own desire. The astral body is immediately responsive to, well, not even just expressed desires, but quite often unexpressed desires. Still out over the Atlantic, enjoying every second. Feeling that great sense of how can I put it? The sense the Atlantic has of its own presence, its own being, shall we say. And it certainly on another level feels at one with all other oceans. The ocean is the ocean. And but I think there's also a sense of the Atlantic being an individual entity, as is the Pacific, as is the Indian Ocean. They're linked, but at the same time they are to some degree individuals. And I'm just sensing that now. I believe that the presiding spirit, maybe could be called a Deva, of the Atlantic Ocean has joined us and has taken a human form, as they can do. They don't have to be, spheres of light. They can assume a human form if it makes you feel comfortable. And this being seems to have done that, and it's close by me right now. And I express my gratefulness for his attentions. I say his, I mean, it's a his, her thing. It doesn't really matter. I get the feeling that this being is something of a giant of a being because of the size of the Atlantic Ocean, but has limited themselves to a small human form for comfort levels, and is speaking and telling me that it's grateful that, that some humans are paying attention. He says we don't get the attention we deserve sometimes. And he's happy that some of us are paying attention, that are actually realizing that our spiritual entities that guide and govern these large bodies of water around the planet. And establishing a contact and maintaining it, even if only from time to time, is important. He says for hundreds of years, thousands of years, it's they get the thoughts and emotions of anxious sailors. Who are usually happier to reach land than they are to be in open water. And that seems like a very historical memory. But yes, it would be a reality for a being like that. Feeling, the anxieties of sailors and sailing ships in in those very regular Atlantic storms. He says, now they feel the anxieties of people flying in planes, of which we know there are many, every hour of the day, crossing the Atlantic. We try to scrub you clean of your anxious vibrations, fearful. We receive them, we kind of purify them and send them back to you. It's it's a fairly automatic response. It's something we can do without too much quote unquote effort. And it's one of our many tasks, and one that we can accomplish quite efficiently. As use of the word efficient seems amusing. He's pointing out, for whatever reason, the number of nature spirits that hover either in or over the waters, whose being is who are, spiritual, if you like, emanations of smaller areas of water within the larger ocean. And they're sort of like little helper guys for the great Deva that hovers over the whole Atlantic. In fact, I think there's more than one Deva. There's one for the South Atlantic and one for the North Atlantic, I'm being told. And it's considered a very mighty, responsible job. And he says, we don't just get it by checking in and saying, hey, I'd like to do that. We have to work our way up. Greater and greater measures of responsibility as we evolve as Deva. And the sort of loss of life over stormy waters is something that we take quite for granted as a natural part of our seemingly endless existence. To us, the processing of human spirits, whether they're in body or out of body because of physical death, is a normal part of our lives. If you can call what we do a life. As we do not feel for ourselves, we do not feel death. We feel it a little bit for you. Just as we feel many other things, the companionship and society of the many fish beings in the waters, all of whom are busy devouring each other and sustaining their life with the flesh of others. We absorb all of that, recharge it, send it back. Just as we do with this much smaller number of human dead. I'm being given a sense of what all this feels like. So let's pause for a moment and feel all those endless transformations and how the Deva processes that. The endless cycle of transformation. Yes, that's quite something, isn't it? So, I'm thanking the Deva for his kind concerns and desire to make a bit of contact with us. Thank you very much. And he moves off, disappears, whatever. Let us move around the planet. We've stopped over the ocean, or an ocean. Let us move over landmass. I'm moving into a little more quickly into Europe now. I seem to be coming across France, moving eastwards. Going a little faster now for the sake of the meditation. And over the Alps, or they're just to my left actually. And quite impressive as always. Another time perhaps we will stop and interact with the Deva of the Alps, of which I know there are, them, us. So speeding over landmass now, and all the varieties of rural and urban life. Really speeding up now, going through Central Asia. It's getting to be a blur, and maybe that blur isn't terribly informative in terms of detail, but it does give you a sense of how much there is and how much is going on every step of the way. As we pass over these areas, it's like whizzing toward the toward China and the eastern coast of China, and then on over the Pacific, we're just reminded of how much there is going on all the time at every level. As somebody said to me the other day, the world is too much with us, but yet how could it be otherwise? We can tune it out, but it's always there in the background, humming away in all its manifestations and life and death processes. It's always there. Over the Pacific Ocean, whizzing over it. Seem to be, well, it's another ocean. I don't think we're going to meet a Deva this time, but we recognize that there are at least one or two there, synthesizing all the processes and returning them from whence they came, renewed and energized. Have any of you seen any UFOs as we whiz around the planet? I hadn't noticed any myself, but I'm always aware that they're there, maybe just slightly out of focus or slightly out of vibrational contact. Just far enough out of our range that we're not going to see them. But they will manifest if you ask, as we've noticed on earlier meditations. Maybe you're preoccupied with what we're doing and don't feel like asking, and for that I understand. So we're coming over North America now. Slow down a bit, shall we? Yes, we seem to be, oh yes, we're over, over Western Canada. At first I noticed I was kind of south of Alaska, just from the topography. But yeah, we're in sort of somewhere in central BC, I think, British Columbia. And we'll be coming over, if you're following along, we'll be coming over some forest fires in northern Alberta fairly soon. You'll see smoke off to your left, I would think. They've been raging away for a few days now. Many people have been evacuated. And a definite sense of the spirits of fire, the salamanders and others, being joyfully involved in the activity of burning. Flames and fires have their own energy, which they exult in, and without much reference to what's being used as fuel. The energetic interactions of a forest fire are very powerful, and the little beings that are involved are completely taken up in it. They rarely see outside of what they're involved in. One would like to teach them. One wonders whether one's model compass as a physical human being whose brothers and sisters are deeply affected by such fires, whether our viewpoint is any more valid than the spirits of fire that are completely consumed by their activities in these forest fires. Who am I to give them advice, you might say? It can be hard to see the creative activity involved in the destruction of a forest. Obviously, forests regenerate themselves. It takes a while. But there is a process of decay, destruction, and regeneration, which is emblematic of what goes on in nature all the time, just as it goes on with us. We're born fresh little babies, all enthusiasm, and we go through life, we age, we decay, we transform, and on it goes. I see us as much a part of nature as anything else. I can't separate the human being from the other beings that populate nature. I don't buy all that stuff about being shepherds and stewards and all the rest of it. I mean, we can play that role, but we can also get very hung up on that role. We're not masters of the earth. We're not shepherds of the earth. We are part of it. We are ongoing cogs in an ongoing machine. And we're not running the show. No matter how much our politicians and scientists may imply that we are or we would like to. It's, vanity, 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 vanity. Let us reach out in our minds and psyches to all the other beings that are playing their part on this planet, on the physical plane, on the astral plane. Let us recognize that they're all fulfilling their potentials and not merely us. Let's never forget that. The worm working in the soil in my garden right now is playing its part in the growth of those bushes and trees and flowers. And so are the ants that are busy whizzing about every time I walk out there. And so are the birds. And so am I. And so are the nature spirits that tell me what to do when I'm out there digging. Don't dig there, dig over here. I'm sure a number of you have had that experience. Anyway, let us come down from our little astral trip around the planet. I hope it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. And it's just one more aspect of our multi-dimensional explorations of the great expanse of nature and the even greater expanse of spirit, both of which are fired up by another source, consciousness. Consciousness creates all, including itself. And maybe we'll explore that another time.